Awesome. All right. So, hello everyone out there. Happy Monday. This is the beginning of our Copywriter Pitching Strategy Week. So, kind of the inspiration behind this, obviously, we're all in a crazy time, kind of in life and in business. So, but I think this is a really big opportunity for a lot of marketers and really anyone that wants to kind of either pivot or make opportunities happen in their business. We're speaking with 5 experts that really know a lot about actually not only reaching out, but getting positive responses and kind of turning those responses into opportunities. So today, to start us off, we are talking with Dayana Mayfield, who is an email outreach expert. So hello, how are you?
Hey, what's up? I didn't write the book on it, but I did make a course, so I'm comfortable with the expert title.
I've seen the course. I actually bought the course and I looked through it. So that was definitely I'm very confident that you know your stuff because I've seen it in action. So
Thanks. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. How are you? How are things on your side of the world?
Doing pretty good. I'm really lucky to be in like a small town where we can easily like walk out, and there's like hiking trails, really close to my house. So we're pretty chill over here. And I'm also lucky that I still have my in-laws watching my kids. I don't know how people with kids are working with them there, because when I do that, it makes me feel like I'm bad at working and a bad parent. So kudos to anybody that's working with kids right now at home.
Yeah, kudos to those people for sure. I cannot relate to that. I'm an extreme bachelor, so like I have to work that myself.
Uh-oh, you're not just a bachelor, you're an extreme bachelor.
I'm an extreme bachelor, yeah. So, but anyways, yeah, so let's get into it. So I wanted to talk to you, like I said, about email outreach. And I think especially cold email is one of those things that a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs and copywriters that are either looking for work or looking to just get in touch with people. It's like they know about it.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But for the most part, they have a lot of hesitations before jumping in, whether they don't want to come off as rude or weird or anything like that. So Dayana, why did you kind of gravitate towards cold email, and what would you say has it done for you and your business so far?
Yeah, so a couple different answers. So to start, when I started my business, I was like highly motivated to make it work very quickly, because as a family, we decided that my husband was going to go back to school and get a PhD, and I had previously been a stay-at-home mom, and I was already like wanting to figure out how I could monetize like my passion for writing. So I was already kind of getting started, and I had like a editorial assistant position at a local magazine that didn't pay very much, and I was starting to do like editing on Upwork. So I'd already kind of like began this process. But then when he went back to school, I had to like really like, balls to the wall, like go for it and make things work really quickly. So I actually took a course on cold email, which was Ed Gandia's, what is it called? Warm email prospecting. I think a lot of copywriters have taken that course. So I took that course and I started reaching out to a lot of different, companies in a lot of different niches and trying to test like what niche worked for me. I started out doing not just like tech and IT, but also like architecture and construction firms and like local businesses. And so I really like it because it lets you like test what niche you want to work with, And then as I grew over time and I learned like more strategies, like getting clients from LinkedIn, and I was getting clients from referrals, and I was getting really successful on Upwork. I don't use Upwork anymore, but there was a time in my business where Upwork was driving like a huge amount of business for me, and like actually at a great rate. I know some people say you can't charge a great rate on Upwork, but you can. And so I was doing all these different things, and then I had a conversation with my lawyer when I was incorporating, and he was like, just working on my like incorporation documents, and he wanted to like kind of give extra value like during the process and kind of consult me a little bit, just like an add-on thing as part of this process. Mm-hmm. So he was asking me questions about my business and how I'm marketing myself. And I was like, yeah, I'm experimenting with all these different things. Like now we're trying, Twitter and Instagram, and I had just hired a VA at that time. And so I was like, I didn't know how to maximize like the use of her. Like I enjoyed working with her. She was great, but I didn't know like what to have her do. So I was just like sending her all these like random crazy tasks and having her make like Instagram, like quote graphics and things like that. And he's like, what actually works for you? Like, if you look at your business and you look at, where do the majority of like your highest quality clients come from? I said, well, it's cold email, so he was like, just double down on that. He's like, don't get distracted by all these other things. He's like, do just that for the whole year. He's like, just focus on that, 100%, double down on it. And until you've like, you've exhausted it, like, don't try doing all these other things. So my assistant and I did that, and we set up like our own process for automating, and outsourcing cold email. And then by really going like all in on it and really systematizing it, that's when I kind of started like just picking up other, tips and tricks like beyond what I had been, taught before.
Right. So basically starting out, you actually used email to kind of to figure out what niche you actually wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yep.
actually kind of like helped kind of shift, or I guess establish your career, right, as a writer.
Yes, definitely. And then it's like you can kind of figure out what niches you want to work with, and then also what niches want to work with you. Because a lot of times when we talk about niching, like we say like, okay, what are you passionate about? What do you have experience in? Like, what do you want to do? But I think you've probably come to this conclusion too. But like with niching, it's also like who wants to work with you and who needs you, So by testing all these different like business types, I learned that like there was such a huge need for somebody who understood, like who could speak code, right? Because I don't code, but I can speak code. Having, gone to college 2 hours, away from San Francisco and different like kind of tech classes that I took in college, and then just having a lot of friends that ended up working at, globally famous tech brands. So I was just kind of like somewhat in that world and could like understand that world enough.
Mm-hmm.
When I started outreaching to like tech companies, SaaS companies, IT companies, that was when I was like, oh wow, these people like really need the fact that I can, have this much understanding of what they do, because most copywriters have, zero.
Right. Okay. So once you kind of figured out the need and like figured out, I guess, who would kind of, where you should focus your efforts, you talked about systematizing and like working with your VA to actually create a process. Because
Yeah.
I think one of the, another aspect of this that people are scared of or nervous about is they just don't want to have to put in this manual labor of every day, like, sending single emails to, with not knowing if they're going to get responses. So how would you, like, I guess for people that have not really been involved in cold email, what is kind of like your plan of attack, or how do you start to organize, your approach as you're getting ready to start emailing people?
Yeah. So obviously there's like a million different like kind of tricks that we could go into, but I'll give like the top two that I think will make like the most like immediate effect for someone. So those would be like very specific criteria. So a lot of times like people make cold email longer and more time consuming than it has to be, because they get kind of like confused or emotional about like who they want to add on their list, right? Because if you're list building for yourself, you're like, oh, do I like this company? Like, does that fit? Do I want to try? Like, you can kind of get like, you kind of can go back and forth and question yourself, like, should I put them on my list? Or, you can make it really time consuming. But if you have very specific criteria, like they're this type of industry, they're this many employees, they're in this geographic location, they have this problem on their website, right? As copywriters, we're really lucky that we can kind of diagnose some issues no matter what type of copy we write. We can typically try to diagnose some issues. We can see, messaging problems on websites. We can see ad copy that we know isn't using best practices. If we look at like, a Facebook page and go to the transparency page and click on the ads that are currently running, we can see bad ads. We can, download an ebook funnel and see that it doesn't have like follow-up emails. It's just an ebook and then nothing, right? Or we can look at a blog roll and see, okay, these blogs are not SEO optimized. A lot of service providers, it's not so easy for them to like diagnose these problems. So, part of your criteria could also be they have this problem, that's the specific thing that you offer. And then the other thing I would say is if you're going to outsource this process, that helps with that too, right? Because you have this very specific criteria. And then another way you can save time is by pre-writing like your problem pitches. So this is like a genius trick that's going to save you guys so much time. But if you have like a spreadsheet, right, and it's like, okay, name, email, company, you can pre-write like maybe 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 problems, like, hey, I noticed that you have a blog, but it's not SEO optimized, right? And then put that in a drop down, like in your spreadsheet, and it's like a data validation thing, right? Where you can make like a drop down in a spreadsheet. Then you just pick which ones fit. So it looks like a custom sentence, but it's not a custom sentence because you just put it in a drop down and you just select which one fits that lead. So that's an awesome thing, because if you feel like your VA maybe can't write exactly like you could train them to pick which sentence fits this site. Or if you still feel like they can't do that, they could do all the other list building stuff, find the email addresses, all that good stuff, and then you just go through, check the website or check whatever, and like pick each, sentence. So those are my 2 tricks.
Yeah, those are good. Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're working with your VA and you're actually sending out these emails, like what is your rate like? How many emails are you sending? Like, why do you kind of, plan the week? Like, what do you do there?
So like we try to do about 40 to 50 per month. So it's not so high. I think when we first started, we were doing more like 100, but as I've built up like other channels a little bit more, we can kind of go a little bit lower there. And then it also kind of depends on how like the nature of your copywriting business, and like, do you do more one big, like one-off big projects, right? Like I have a lot of like recurring clients, so I really only have space to kind of do maybe 2 or 3 new clients in a month. So for me, that volume is fine. And then our average is 20 emails per one like booked client.
Okay.
So that's the average. I think the other thing that people are kind of wondering right now is like, can cold emails still work? Should I talk about what's going on in my pitch? And my answer to that is solve it on the list building side. So if you're like, I don't think email is going to work, or I'm worried about reaching out to people right now, like just put companies on your list that are more likely to be doing well right now. So like, read the news, like figure out what markets are doing great right now, and, prospect within that niche, right? Like cloud computing, right? Like what other tools like help companies work from home? Like that's just an example of something that's doing really well right now.
And when you say list building, you mean you mean like your prospect list that you're planning to send cold emails to each month?
Yeah. So we do that like really manually. And all the best like cold email marketers I know that like have a fully managed, like full service cold email marketing agency, they say the same thing, like manually build your list. Don't try to like just buy it or scrape it or something, because like that's quality over quantity, right? You want to like make sure that anybody on your list is like a real company that really fits your criteria. So one of the ways that we do that is we look for like podcasts and conferences, and then we see like who is being interviewed, who is a speaker, who is a sponsor, right? So pick any industry. So say like e-commerce, you could go to an e-commerce software. So say Privy, right? Privy.com. That's an e-commerce software. So they have their e-commerce marketing show. Their podcast is interviewing successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Then as a software company, they also have case studies that's showing like successful e-commerce store owners that are doing well with their software. So that way you're like actually finding companies that are like successful enough to have been interviewed, successful enough to have been a case study. So that's kind of like another way of that quality over quantity thing, where like who are you putting on your list, and like are they really like the top dog? You're not just like doing some random searches and, because there could be a lot of e-commerce store owners that have zero sales. Or
Yeah.
they like, you don't want to just go look at an e-commerce store and be like, oh, they sell coffee mugs, so I think they would be a great fit.
Right.
Like you should have some other evidence that they've got some money to spend and they want help.
And I think that's interesting with the podcast approach, because not only is that a signal that they're good at what they do, it's a signal that they're open to communication, like open to opportunities, not necessarily saying, they're not saying cold pitch us, but like they're the type of company that wants to be out there and kind of connected in the
Exactly.
I'll be more willing, right?
They're growing. And that's a huge one, especially with like people who work with small business owners, coaches, consultants, where it can be really hard to gauge how successful these companies are, right? Because my niche is SaaS. So I can go to a SaaS website. If they have like a pretty nice looking website with great design, the product screenshots look really modern. They have, 20 plus employees. That tells me, okay, like this SaaS company has got some MRR coming in, like they're doing well in some form or another. But if you work with, say, like spiritual coaches or business coaches or like solopreneurs, it can be really hard to know like who is doing well, who is, making multiple six figures and, wants, more people to join their, virtual team. And then who is like, this is like a side gig for them, right? And maybe they're not going to have a budget for having anybody help them with anything. So like, being interviewed on a podcast doesn't necessarily tell you that that person's doing well, but especially if it's like a higher, not higher level, like a more popular one, right? Like Entrepreneurs on Fire or something.
Right.
Like somebody, like if they're a coach or consultant and they're on Entrepreneurs on Fire, they're at a certain level, that's not a side gig for them. So so basically the point is like, especially if you work with small business owners, solopreneurs, that can be a really great trick to, find people.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think in general, just keeping, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of businesses out there that we think are good targets for cold emails. But if we would just kind of do a little bit more research and see where they are online, how they're appearing online, I think that does a lot to just, pre-judge or pre-qualify to see if they're worth kind of adding to your list.
Exactly. And that way anybody you put on your list is somebody that you're like genuinely interested in, because it's really, the cool thing is it is your choice, and it's like, who are you putting on your list? Like the people that you want to try to work with, so maybe you're already in one niche that you like and you want to go up market a little bit. You want to try to get some bigger logos on your website. You want better portfolio pieces like that have really great design, because these companies have nice, like, talented designers, right? So like you can kind of get a little strategic with it, and whether you're going up market or you want to test a different niche or you want to test a different service. Say like, you always write blog posts and a previous client asked you to write ads for them and you're like, oh my gosh, like I loved writing these like Google search ads, or I love writing these Facebook ads. Like that was so much more fun than writing blog posts. Like I really want to do that again, right? So then you can pitch that to people. So I think that people get turned off by cold email because they're like, oh, it's so time consuming, or it's boring, or it's sucky, but they're not really thinking of it in like that, taking ownership of like, what are you strategically trying to change in your business and where do you want to go? It doesn't mean you're always going to be cold emailing. Doesn't mean you have to be doing it like 2 hours a day. You can do it, like go all in on it for a couple months and get the results of that test, or get those new portfolio samples. Say you want more ad copy, and then you can take a break,
So, what was I going to say? So, okay, so we've kind of talked about the research and how we can pre-qualify and kind of figure out who the best people to add to our list is. So now I kind of want to talk about the actual messaging itself. So I know you have a lot of different kind of templates and kind of ways to reach out to different people. And I know in this call that there are people that are not only pitching for copywriting gigs, but there's marketers that want to maybe reach out to kind of create a partnership or create a relationship, or maybe just have a call, like maybe have a conversation. What would you say is, so what is your general like rule of thumb when asking for like a call to action in the email? Do you usually just try and get a reply? Do you have a link that you send them to? Do you kind of just like, what is your rule of thumb there?
So I never give a link to, book a call. And I actually write a lot of cold email copy for SaaS companies and for like consultants. And same thing with them. Like I don't put a link to book a call, and like the response rate goes so much higher, right? Because it's a small ask. Like you want to do a small ask. So some versions of that, like, if you put a problem like, hey, I noticed this problem on your site, or, even if it's like you're selling marketing automation services, you could like tell that they, don't have like complicated email funnels set up, or they don't have, like some issues with their website that you find or something like that. Any problem that you see. So it's like a one sentence problem, like, hey, I noticed this. And the other thing you do with that is you do the pat slap. So I remember a boss told me this one time, like when you give feedback to somebody, like pat slap. So like be nice and then slap.
Yeah.
So like, hey, I love the design of your site, but I noticed that it loads really slow, right? Like if you're more on like the development side of website and you're not like a designer, right? You're not trying to like help them redesign their site. You just want to help them like speed it up or something. So, hey, I love the design of your site, but I noticed that it loads really slow. Like I help, in-house marketing teams like take care of the, website development tasks that like get pushed to the side or whatever. Like if you're interested in me helping out with that, like, let me know and we can chat about it or something. And then like they can just like, oh yeah, we might be interested in that. Or like just like more chill. Like the top thing I would say about writing a template is just like super chill and conversational.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just put like who you are and what you do, but not like stuff it with like a lot of options or a lot of value propositions or something like that. And then you can end off like with questions like, is this something that you might be tackling this year? Like, is this something that you're interested in working on? Like, for example, if you're selling like SEO blogging, like, hey, I noticed that your company doesn't have a blog yet. I help companies like increase their website traffic with SEO, blog posts. Like, is that something you'd be interested in this year? That's a really great way to end an email, because, or not this year, it could be this quarter or something, because then you get the person to reply and be like, oh yeah, we've been thinking about it, reach out to me in 3 months, or like now is not a great time, but circle back with me in a couple weeks, or yeah, I'm interested, we've been meaning to do this, let's talk about it. So not only do you get responses more likely than like asking for a call, but you can also get some information from that person, because they can say like, yeah, I'm interested, or they say like, yeah, we'd like to take this on, but probably Q3.
Mm.
So then you just write that down in, I use a Trello board. You just write that down when somebody responds. And if they give you like a specific time to reach back out, then you put that in your Trello board and set a reminder, you put in your calendar, whatever. And then it's like you got a response, but you're like building your pipeline out in the future. So that's another thing that people get wrong about cold email, is they don't take a long-term approach with it.
Mm.
It's kind of awesome, because then you're like, well, sweet, now I have somebody to reach out to in 3 months. Like, and that just makes you feel good, because you're like, that like you're just always marketing like yourself, like more like long-term, right?
I really love the specificity aspect that you touched on, because I think a lot of cold emails, we tend to just want to end it like, are you interested? Does this sound good to you? And when you
Yeah.
when you say that, like the question, like the answer is like, doesn't really give you anything, because it's like no or yes, and it's like, okay. But when you say like this quarter or this year or even like this week, if it's something super super urgent, it makes it, yeah, it makes it more specific and a lot more real. And then I think it also kind of conditions them to feel the need to like explain themselves a little bit more. Whereas if you would just
Yeah.
say, no, I'm not interested, or yes, I'm interested, because then you don't know like the because, you don't know why or when or like all the details. So I think
Totally.
whenever you can be a little bit more specific in that ask at the end, it just
Yeah.
makes it easier for them, because I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what cold email is all about, is making it easy for them to respond to you, right?
Yes.
Get them to not have to think too hard, or like go ask 6 people like what they should say, or else it'll just get ignored, right? So kind of making that, just making it easy. That's what it's all about.
Right. Yeah. Another example with like an ask that kind of, opens the conversation is with a client. They were it's like DevSecOps. So it's like penetration testing for SaaS, like SaaS companies that aren't like large enough to have like a security engineer on staff. So they have to have like security, like outsourced, right? App security. So they had I don't know, it's like 1 out of like 100 responses or something. Like it was really not very good. And so I rewrote their sequence. The previous sequence was like, let's book a call. Do you have time for a call next week? It's all that same stuff that everybody's doing, right? Let's book a call. Like, let's chat for 30 minutes. And so I rewrote it, and the whole rest of the message was different too. But just at the end, it said, like, can I send you over some more info? So then the owner of the company, when somebody would reply, he would just write back with like some little details, and then like a brochure, just like a 1-page cut sheet that was like, what they do. And so then that person's like actually wanting to check it out, like, yeah, send it over, because then they changes it, right? You send it over in the email and they're like, oh, I asked for this, I'm going to open it and read it, versus you sent me something that I didn't ask for. And then they can read it and they're like, oh yeah, we do need this, right? We don't have app security taken care of as well as we should. So yeah, let's get on a call. So then his response went to like somewhere around 1 out of like 25. And then he actually got a response from Hiten Shaw. I don't know how to pronounce his name right. It's like, you know who that is?
Yeah.
Is it Hiten Shaw?
Probably.
Right. So he's like a SaaS influencer, and he has like a couple different SaaS companies. So so anyways, yeah, he's like, I just got a response from, this guy that's well known. And I was like, yes. Yeah. So that's another one too. If you have like a case study, or you have like some portfolio pieces or something, like just test that one too. You can say like, hey, can I send these over? Would you like me to, show you some examples, right? Do you want me to show you some examples? Like that's a really easy way to end an email. Yeah. And then that one doesn't necessarily give you more information, but it makes it more likely that they're going to respond. And then it also makes it more likely that they're going to read whatever you sent them, because they asked for it.
I love that, because I think the default is to say, hey, let's jump on a call. Like it's like so convenient and so fun to jump on a call with anyone. Like no one wants to do that. So yeah,
I don't want to talk to somebody I don't know for 30 minutes about, I don't even know what they're asking me for. Like it's so silly how that became so standard. Because like it's still so common. Like I write a lot of cold email for sequences for people. Like I don't manage their cold email, but I just like write cold email for a lot of like companies as a service. And like it is still really common, because they all come to me with that same sort of format for their existing emails. And it's like, what is this? Like even from agencies, even from cold email agencies, not just like in-house. Like so I don't know. I think it's like they're trying to report on the call. Like the agency is trying to say, okay, like we got you this many calls in a month, and that's like their metric that they're trying to report on. Right? And so they're like owning that process, because they're trying to get you that call booked. But if you're like doing it yourself, then you can just reply. And so it's like a bit of a longer process, because you might not book the call until like the third reply, right? Because you give them more information, then they might ask you a question, then you answer and you say like, would you like to discuss this more? So it's like a different way of managing it. So I think that's part of the problem, is the way that cold email agencies, they don't manage that response part, right? Because they're not your sales team. They can't answer these questions. So like, I don't know. So for us as service providers, like we don't have to worry about that. Like we can just do it in a way that, like makes more sense, because we're not just trying to go straight for the call.
And it's just like, damn, it's a whole agency that is supposed to be good at cold email, and yet that's still like their go-to is just to be like, hey, let's get the call. That's weird. And I think it's a weird thing that has just kind of been built into marketing for whatever reason. Like I have no idea. I think at some point something just like felt like hey, let's hop on a call. Like it was a cool, like the thing to do to quickly build rapport, but like, it's just not
Yeah.
realistic at all.
No, I
Mm.
think also people don't like talking on the phone as much. I think I've heard that before. Like, for example, like I'm in the process of buying a house right now. So like I can just call my mortgage lender, my realtor at any time and like just ask them a question, right? And that's like part of their business. Like they're so used to that. And it's like really normal for them to just be fielding these phone calls like throughout the day. Where I think like a lot of people in different industries that are a bit more digital, like we're very scheduled. Like if somebody had my phone number and they could just call me at any time of the day, like it would drive me
Horrible.
bananas. Would be terrible. Yeah. So like I think of people that are much more like digital first, we're like, okay, give me the information and then like I'll tell you if I want to talk to you. So I think there could be some of that in there. Like maybe this whole thing started like a bit before like full on digital work, maybe.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense because it really is all about the audience. So if you are, I think if you do kind of maybe deal with more local businesses or more
Yeah.
traditional businesses that are just more comfortable on the phone, then maybe that could work. So, I
Yeah.
guess this is just another case of kind of knowing your audience and knowing how they respond. And another thing that you touched on earlier, because I mean, your client said they got in touch with, a well-known name in the SaaS space. And I think that just goes to show like people that have problems, they don't really care about where the solution comes from. Like
Mhm.
they're not gonna, if they see a potential fix to their problem, they're not gonna like scoff because they're not connected with this person on LinkedIn yet, right? So it's just kind of I think there's a confidence level you have
Yeah.
to have. You're saying like, I'm hitting you up because I can solve your problem. I'm not just hitting you up to bother you or annoy you or because I'm just like a loser. I'm hitting you up
Yeah.
because I can help you. So I think even
Right.
having that confidence going in will help simplify the message for sure. And then of course it'll help pre-filter people like we talked about before. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll be surprised too, like what like level of company that you can go for. I think a lot of service providers like tend to stay smaller. Maybe they enjoy working with smaller businesses, or maybe they just don't know that, more established companies still need their help. So I think that's the cool thing too, is you can like reach out to pretty much anybody, and so you'd be surprised like that, famous big companies will still be open, if you can hit the right person with the right message, like, you know.
Yeah, so we actually have a question that kind of
Mhm.
touches on that. Well, we have two questions now. So the first question, so somebody is talking about PR communications. They're like interested
Mm.
in getting started as a PR consultant.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess, would you have any advice as far as like what could be a cool, I mean, I don't know, I don't know how much
I
you're,
guess you could sell digital PR services. I mean, yeah. Yeah. So I think like, I don't know much about like traditional PR, but I know like digital PR is like, helping people get booked on podcasts, right? What's another thing? That's the only thing that comes to mind when I think of digital PR, but that's a big one. So I think like also, well, I guess traditional PR is like getting like in like magazines or big outlets. So yeah, you could definitely do that with cold email. Like you could just show an example. So maybe if you have one previous client that you've gotten in a big outlet, and then just like, hey, like I noticed that you have a really great product, but you don't seem to have much press coverage yet. Like I help companies like XYZ get into, entrepreneur.com and Forbes.com. Like, can I
yeah.
send you over an example? Or like, would you be interested in taking this on this quarter?
Hmm.
Right. And then see what they reply and take the conversation from there. The cool thing is with cold email, you can also like get started before you even have samples. So like I said, when I started, like I decided I didn't want to do the like local magazine thing anymore. And also we were moving. And I didn't want to do editing because I realized like I wanted to do writing, not editing. So I started pitching to companies like before I even had client work. So I just wrote my own blog posts. One of the first things I was also starting was like travel writing. So I just wrote like my own like how to like do like San Francisco with kids blog post, like where to go with kids to San Francisco, right? Like 5 places like you could take kids. And I just put it in a Google Doc. And so that was like my sample. And then when I did construction companies, I just wrote my own like construction blog post
Yeah.
right? And then I just made that my example.
That's what I tell
So
people. That's what I tell people all the time that are worried.
yeah,
It's kind of a separate topic, but like, if they are worried about having a portfolio or nothing to show, like just make up a
make
project for
one.
yourself and
Yeah,
portfolio. So
exactly. Because there's so many people that can't write. So yeah, if you're starting with digital, or I'm making it digital PR because that's what I've like a little bit know. But if you're starting with any sort of PR, you could do it for a nonprofit. You could do it for a friend's company. You could do it for yourself.
yeah.
Right? Like I just got an article in Business Insider. So Business Insider was like did a like a HARO, HARO, the help a reporter out for like 6-figure copywriters. So I was like interviewed in this article for Business Insider. So like you can even just answer HAROs for like yourself or whatever you want to do. So it's like, hey, I got myself in Business Insider. Like I could show you how to get in Business Insider, or like not show you, but I could do it for you. So if
Yeah.
there's any service that you want to offer, yourself, a nonprofit, a friend's business, whatever, do that. And then that's your example, and you can make it into a case study or just show the portfolio example.
Yeah. So Michelle, I hope that helps, but really I think it's, yeah. So kind of figure out what you want to offer as a PR consultant, do it, and then have that as your portfolio, and then kind of start reaching out. And I think in general, that pat and slap method is kind of the baseline, I think, for all cold email. Like tell them something nice, tell them something you observed or like research that you could help them with, and then ask them if they need help with that. So I think that can really apply to pretty much any industry. One more question from Craig. So this is a good one. Any hacks for figuring out email addresses that are not listed, and is it okay to email them?
Yeah. So it is okay. I think this depends slightly by country. So I don't 100% know exactly what GDPR has done to cold email for Europeans. I think there's differing opinions on that. So I'm not going to I don't really exactly know, but I still cold email Europeans because I actually have a lot of European clients. But yes, you can email people. There's this like weird thing that I don't fully understand, but you want to make sure you're using like the right software, or you're just doing it manually from your inbox. So when you get started, just do it manually from your own inbox. But when you want to start like automating your follow-up so you don't have to remember to follow up, then make sure you're using something like reply.io or outreach.io, and not something that is a marketing tool like MailChimp or like ConvertKit. So there's something behind like the spam laws of what those like softwares are doing. And then in terms of finding email addresses, the tool that I like the best is Clearbit. I'm trying to think of some names of the other ones.
I know
Um,
Novio is one.
Novio, yeah, there's like Lead Hunter.
Yeah.
Lead Hunter, I think is a big one. Yeah, Clearbit to me is like one that's just really, really easy to use because you install it in your, it's like a Gmail, what would that called be? Like a Gmail extension. It's not like a Chrome browser extension, it's the Gmail extension. So yeah, that's a really good one. You could start with that one. And that one's free for like 100 emails a
Okay.
month. Yeah. So a lot of these, they have like a free plan. I think Lead Hunter might have a free plan too. So you can kind of like use a few different ones. So you piece together like the number of emails that you need.
Yeah, Craig, I think I used Snovio for a while, and I believe it's a Chrome extension, and you basically just go to any website and so there's like different plans. I think I was on a free plan or a very cheap plan where it doesn't, so you go to a website and maybe you go to like the contact page and there's like 8 people, or the team page, and there's like 8 people, and then it would like, find the emails but with like stars in it, so you don't see the whole name because you have to pay like a lot extra for that. But you can kind of figure out, once you see the format of an organization's email addresses, then you can kind of figure out how to put the name in that format. And then most likely, it's really only like 3 formats it's going to be. It's like first name, last name, first letter, or first initial, last name, things like that. So it's really kind of just figuring out the format, I think, using one of these tools for very cheap or free, And then you can use that just going forward and then being able to just figure out the email address. And I
Yeah,
think,
that's a big one that I do too. Cause like, yeah, exactly. Like you said, that exact person that you want to contact might not be there. You know, maybe you want to contact the marketing manager,
yeah,
but it's just the CEO is inside of Clearbit, or it's just the CFO, right? And like
right,
you said, you figure out the format, like first initial, last name, and then you just see the person's name in LinkedIn.
yeah,
And then you're like, okay, I'm going to figure out the format, put it in, and then you can run it through a bounce checker. So like reply.io has bounce checking in there. If you're doing like a large volume, you know, you might want to do a bounce check, but if you're just doing a few, you could just send it. And then if you get a mailer demon, then just re-guess it, right? So like if it's somebody with like two last names, or like they have their middle name, you know, maybe you thought their middle name isn't in their email address, but maybe it is because it's, you know, it's Anna Maria, not just Anna Maria, right? So if you get a mailer demon back, then just guess again.
right. That's a good tip. All right, so I have two more questions. I think that can kind of lead us to the end. So the first one is, what would you say, like, subject lines? So obviously subject line is the first, I mean, really kind of the most important part, because if you don't grab their attention enough to get them to open the email, then all of that work is for nothing. So what,
Yes.
in general, what is your thinking as far as approaching a subject line for each prospect?
So for subject lines, I think it is always best to keep them very, very simple and non-salesy. So like you'll probably notice like when you get cold email, like there's like, you know, quick chat, or like, you know, like you can tell it's a cold email right in there, or they put like, you know, like some like value propositions, or it's very like overly copywritten, like, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
best this or something like that. And you're like, you know, it's something salesy. So you're like, I'm not even going to open it. So if you do something that seems like it could come from someone that they know, or it's just like, again, really chill. Like, so an example is like website ideas. So, you know, if whether you're like a designer, copywriter, developer, whatever, like you could use the headline like website ideas, or like issue on site. Like say you found like some issue and you're trying to pitch them like the solution to that issue on site. Like a customer could have sent that, an employee could have sent that, a friend could have sent that, because you're
yeah,
like, oh, there's an issue on my site, right? um so that's a good example. And then I'm trying to think of like other things that I do with you know, client emails too, is like to kind of make it sound like it could be a referral. So for example, Property Radar is a software that helps like real estate agents and real estate investors do direct mail, using like public records data to find the right property owners to reach out to.
mm,
So in cold email, we say like absentee owners. So you're like if you're a real estate investor and you often send direct mail to absentee owners, and somebody gives you an email that says absentee owners, you're going to check it, right? Because you're going to be like, wait, are there some like absentee owners that I need to know about? Somebody's telling me about something, you know, or it could be like out of town owners, because it says out of town owners. You could think, all right, this is another investor or another agent that I know that is telling me something about some out of town owners, that maybe they want to refer me to them, or maybe that's an introduction email, right? So if you can kind of get past that sales trigger that goes off in our mind when we read an email subject line, and make it sound like it could be from someone they already know, that's going to help a lot with your
yeah.
open rate. So yeah, I can get my open rates at like 75%, you
Wow.
know, 80%, like is like the highest I've ever gotten in like a month, but you know, somewhere around that 70 to 80, because it's a high quality manual list. And then I use reply.io so I can actually like track the open. So that's like, you know, not me doing the math. That's like actually the software doing the math. So between a quality list and then a really chill, mellow subject line, you know, then you have a good chance there. And then also with that somewhat, you know, custom pitch, or that problem statement, that's going to be like the opening of your email, that's going to show in the email preview. So by doing that, you also increase your open rate because somebody can see that. So if it's like issue on site, and then it's like, I noticed that you have a beautiful site, but it loads slowly. Like they're going to be able to see like the majority of that. If they're looking at this on desktop, they're going to see quite a large amount of that text in the email preview. So they're going to be like, they're going to see that it was written for them, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's another good reason to, number one, keep your subject line simple, like you said, but then also once you write the email, just get straight into it. Like if you started off by saying, hey, my name is Tyler, and this is why I think I am qualified to email you, blah, blah, blah. Like that's just, it's just going to cause them to glaze over. And then when they're looking at it in your inbox, like you said, you can see the pre-header or whatever it's called, the little first line of email next to the subject line.
Yeah.
Then they're going to see like right away whether or not it is useful for them. And since you did your research, it will be useful for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's really just like 3 sentences. It's like pat slap problem.
Yeah.
This is what I do. And then like, would you like to see more information? Would you like to see a sample? Or are you thinking of tackling this quarter? It's like 3 sentences, because then that's something like your brain, you can like just take in 3 sentences without even really knowing that you're reading it, right? Whereas if you get something longer, you have to like work more to figure it out, where somebody could open that and no matter how tired they are, some of the words are going to go inside of their mind without them even knowing it. You know?
Yeah, no, I think, and I think it just makes it so much easier overall for like kind of a longer term strategy. Is if you keep it that simple, then you don't have to get like burnt out if you don't get a reply in 50 emails or something, because you're just kind of following the process, and then you keep going, and eventually you're gonna, you know, it's gonna all kind of come to some sort of opportunity.
Yeah, and you can get referrals. Like I've gotten referrals from people that I emailed, even if they didn't work with me, because they liked my email. like not even kidding. Like, you know, like they hear of some other person that needs copywriting and they're like, oh, I know someone. So like you can totally get referrals from prospects that didn't even have, like they didn't have a need, right? Like I don't need to work with you, but like I know somebody else that does.
Yeah.
Like why not? If you have great samples and you have a great email, like of course they would rather send this friend or colleague or whatever to you than to go unleash them in the, you know, realm of Upwork and gig sites where somebody could be really cruddy, you know?
Yeah. And like you said, there's just so much value in coming across as a chill, regular person, even if it's B2B. And I think that's something, because a lot of people are doing B2B and they're like, oh, I have to be B2B. I have to like put on a collared shirt and tell this person how serious I am. But at the end of the day, it's just another person that's opening their inbox. So if you can come across chill and like you're like not pushy and you're not weird, then they're gonna be like, they're gonna respond, even if they don't need you right now. It's just like showing reciprocity, like you know, you're cool with my time, I'll be cool with your time. So everyone's human. Everyone just wants regular things. Like it doesn't have to be this crazy thing. And so
totally.
One of my last question. So how do you manage, or how do you schedule follow-ups? Like say you don't get a response like for 3 days. What is your sequence that you kind of put them into?
Yeah. So I think when I very first started this, I would do it in my spreadsheet. So like, you know, you have your spreadsheet where you do your list, you build your list with names and emails and all that stuff. And then you can make a column for every date you send an email, right? So the first time you send it, you like put a column. It's like, you know, first email, you know, second, third, whatever. And then you can just put the date in there. So that way you can keep track. And then you can use a tool like Yesware if you want to schedule that it will remind you to reply. Or, you know, you could try to find a way to like do these in bulk. So if you do like 25, then you know you have to do 25 follow-ups on this specific day, and then you put that in your calendar. What's much, much easier for anyone who is a little bit farther along in their business and would rather spend money than time would be to use an automation tool like reply.io or outreach.io or woodpecker.io. I don't know why all the best ones, they're always an IO. I know a lot of SaaS companies now are like the IO thing. And so that means you just load up your follow-up sequence Obviously the follow-ups would say, different things, but you could try different strategies. Say you ask one question in one, you could ask a different question in the other. Like if you offered an example in one, you could offer, a case study. So you want to like change those up. You don't send the same email text, you change up your email text. But a good rule of thumb is, send it now and then maybe like 5 to 10 days and then another 5 to 10 days. And then you can do it in like a month and then 3 months and then 6 months. So the other thing that people really get wrong with cold email is they load it all into like 1 month. They do like 8 emails over 1 month. That is a really common thing. I think it also stems from the agency thing where they're trying to get that quick win for their client and then get to report on it. So they keep paying them. But it's also not a natural thing. That's also not something that people enjoy, right? Because then you become, oh, this is the same person that's been emailing me for a month and I can't wait until I'm out of their system and they stop emailing me, right? Because it kind of sets you up. If you email somebody 8 times in 1 month, they're going to remember that you're the person that's still emailing them, right? But if you wait a little bit longer, you're going to hit them in a different headspace. So if you've emailed them a couple times, maybe in about 90 days, 2 or 3 times in 90 days, and wait 3 months, then wait 6 months, then wait 6 months, because they're going to be in a different space. So if they're a good fit for your business now, they're most likely a good fit for your business in a year from now. Unless you've really pivoted in some, pretty extreme way, they're probably still a good client for you a year from now. So maybe when you first reached out to them, they weren't interested in SEO blogging, or they weren't trying to set up more robust email automation. But now that you've hit them, 9 months later, like it's the perfect time. So, you can continue to use your email list for like 2 years, possibly, obviously by spacing it out more, like not every month for 2 years, but, every 6 months or something.
And that's the thing, like, even like, so my inbox is a mess, like it's a hot mess, but like, even if I would get an email today and I didn't respond, like I know who emailed me. Like I remember, like it's not, I don't need an email in 3 days to remind me who emailed me 3 days ago. Like it's, if you're, I think if you're prospecting correctly and you're kind of coming from this helpful standpoint, and especially if you have an email tracker that shows if they're opening it, then you kind of just have to, like, cold email is one of those things you have to just let happen. Like, these relationships, and you can't force it. The point is that you're just making yourself available. So, it really is going to work against you if you try and force them all into like a 2-week period where you're following up, like, because then you just come across as a spammer, and then you're a spammer, and then you're a spammer, and that's the end of it. So
exactly. And timing really does matter, and you can't control that. You can control putting quality people on your list. You can control what you say, but if you try to control someone's timing, then you're a little bit cuckoo, because you're not in control of that, So like space it out, give them 3 months, maybe in 3 months, they would love to redo their website. Right now they're stressed. You don't know what fires people are putting out or what campaign they're already like knee deep in, so like don't try to control the timing, just try to, hit it over multiple time periods so you increase your chances of hitting them at the right time.
Yeah, especially now, that is something to be super cognizant about, is like people have other shit to worry about. Like if they don't respond to a cold email, like
right.
end of the world. Awesome. So we have one more question from Mashal. What is the longest copy you've written? What's the usual LOE? I'm not sure what length of email, I guess. That's what I'm
length of email.
I've never seen LOE used like that.
But, yeah, I know. Now we just learned a new.
Oh, level of effort. Okay.
Oh, level of effort.
Level of effort, like.
Oh, okay, like per like figuring out what maybe their problem is. Yeah, so for the emails, I would do max, 4 sentences, like 3 to 4 sentences, all you need. And then level of effort, I try to go like really quick. So I would rather be wrong on some of my problem statements than spend 15 minutes on each one. Because the worst case thing that can happen is somebody's like, no, that's like, I don't have that problem, but I have this problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like misdiagnosing it in the email is not like the worst thing you could do. You don't want to misdiagnose somebody's problem on a sales call. Obviously, you want to know what somebody's real problem is on a sales call. But if you kind of misdiagnose it in your problem statement, that's not like the hugest thing. So I think a lot of people, they put like way too much time and effort into trying to customize each individual one. Like just customize the first sentence. Don't customize the entire email. And then just make a quick decision. Like you see this problem, okay, cool, there you go, moving on, or just kind of like guess at it. It's better to like move forward and like hit more, like, hit more people than to like, let me do 20 minutes to like make this one email, right?
Yeah.
Because if you
No,
still have good samples and your email is still well written, they'll be like, oh yeah, I don't care about my website's slow load time. Or like, yeah, we don't have like SEO set up, but I'm not worried about that right now, but can you do this? Right? Because sometimes people, if you say this problem, they're like, yeah, I'm not worried about this, but could you do this instead?
yeah, no, that's great. And I think just again, it's just making it easy for them to respond. But I will say, once a couple years ago, I was doing some cold email,
Mhm.
and I wrote like a long self-deprecating cold email, but
Oh.
like, hey, I know you hate like, basically the theme was like cold email, like you hate cold email, but here's why you should.
Mhm.
So like,
Mhm.
if you get creative about it, there's
Yeah.
ways that can work. But I would say like, like in general, kind of your bulk strategy would be just the pat and slap and move on.
Mhm. Mhm. Did that work well? Doing that one? Did
I
it
got
work
a
well?
couple that were like,
Yeah.
they were like, holy shit, this is really
It's
clever.
funny.
We don't need your services, but I just wanted to say thanks for this email. I was like, okay.
Yeah, if they're like funny enough. I know I've seen some, I think his name was Charm Offensive. I think it's like
Heard of that.
charmoffensive.co.uk.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he's like big on like the humor in the cold email, and I haven't really tried that so much. I kind of just keep it real simple and professional, but he does that where it's like he puts funny gifs and he just like tells jokes, and then he does like, two words that are like remotely related to what he's offering. So, if you're funny, you can try that and let us all know how it goes.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's just the thing about that is, one, of course, your audience, but then two, if you're not funny and you think you're funny and like, and the joke doesn't fly, then you just look dumb. So
Yeah,
you gotta be careful with
true. Yeah,
that.
yeah. And you want to get your message across. Like, what are you offering, right? Because somebody
Yeah,
could read those funny ones and they're like, I still don't even know what this person wanted me to do,
for sure.
you know?
All right, so guys, if there's any other questions for Dayana while we have her. So are you running, have you created kind of new outreach strategies for like this new climate that we're in, or you kind of your stuff?
I'm not doing any different templates. I'm just watching who I'm putting on my list,
Okay.
so I'm just being more focused there. Like, for example, like fast moving consumer goods aren't going anywhere. People still need to buy shampoo and soap.
Yeah.
So I have one client that is a software company for market research for fast moving consumer goods. So like they came to me. So I'm like, okay, let me pay attention to who's coming to me and who still needs work, and then try to replicate that. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a hot tip, everyone. If there's leads,
Yeah, pay
if you have
attention.
other channels that are like popping off, or if leads that are coming in, like those are the people you should be reaching out to. Shows that the need
Yeah,
is there. And I think it's just like thinking, like being aware of what's happening. Like you said,
yeah.
like certain e-commerce brands are still going to be really needing to up their messaging, whereas
Hmm.
I guess the obvious example, like restaurants, are probably not really,
Yeah,
well, one, they're not going to have any money, and two, they're probably like not, they're just not worried about their website copy right
right.
now.
Or they need help with like implementing delivery service. Like I had this one guy that bought the course. He helps restaurants like get going on the, like with delivery services, right? He's a consultant for that.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it could be things that it's a company that's maybe not doing good, but an opportunity for how they could do better. So it's one, either look for who's doing well right now by reading the news or seeing who's messaging you, or see who that isn't doing well, but what the solution is, right? So like a dance instructor studio, like you could help them set up like Zoom classes. So like because the kids love it. Like, my 6-year-old, she's doing like these, Zoom drawing sessions with her first grade class, and like they love it. So if you could convince somebody that not every business this will work for, but maybe there are some small businesses or some businesses that aren't doing well, that they can go digital, and they have no idea how to do that, how to sell that and make the landing page and, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think right now specifically is just such an opportunity to show your value as not just a writer necessarily, but someone that just can solve problems or come at business from a creative angle. Because a lot of these, this is obviously very uncharted water. So a lot of people want to make moves, they want to do stuff, they aren't just really sure how to do it. So coming from that, I think coming from an angle of, providing an opportunity, or just something that gets them thinking, maybe that in a way they weren't thinking before, is just going to be welcomed. So
yeah, it's going to be very positive. They'll be grateful for that. So yeah, don't like, that's the thing, is it's your mindset. Like, what do you think cold email is? Do you think it's like you're desperate and you're needy and you're annoying, or do you think you're helping somebody that really needs your help?
yeah, that's huge. That's so big.
Yeah.
If you feel annoying, you're probably going to come off as annoying.
Yeah. Then you should shut up.
Yeah, for
Don't email anyone.
real. All right. Well, that was really, really helpful.
Yay.
Lots of good nuggets to pull from this
Yes.
talk. So I really appreciate
Awesome.
you sharing some stuff. Um, so we will be having a recording. Oh, and last but not least, Dayana has a product. If you want to start
Yeah.
actually like getting some of your email outreach going, and you're not really sure how to get your templates in order and stuff, you can. I mean, you can.
Yeah, so you can go to dayanamayfield.com/outreach and check it out there. So dayanamayfield.com/outreach. Check it out and connect with me on LinkedIn too, so we can be buddies. And thank you guys for watching. And thank you so much, Tyler, for inviting me to do this. This was super fun. And as you can tell, I love talking about cold email. So thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you like talking about it because you're good at it. So it's
Thanks.
very helpful. So everyone go buy her templates. They're actually really good, and it's like a shitload of templates. I'm like still going
Yeah,
through
it's a lot.
them. So yeah, connect with her, connect with me, tell your friends about us and how great we are, and have a fantastic Monday. And see you guys Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for the rest of our talks. So
Awesome.
peace.
Bye.